Betrayal always starts with trust. Min-seok Hwang had survived 17 assassination attempts in his 12 years running the Hwang crime family. He'd outlived 3 rival bosses who'd tried to eliminate him, evaded 4 separate federal investigations, and built a criminal empire spanning from Seoul to Los Angeles that generated approximately $500 million annually in illegal revenue. He'd survived all of it because he was paranoid, methodical, and absolutely ruthless about vetting everyone who got close to him. His inner circle was small, 6 people he trusted with his life because they'd proven their loyalty repeatedly through years of service. One of those 6 people was Jae-sung Park, his head of security, his personal bodyguard for 8 years. The man who'd saved Min-seok's life during 2 of those 17 assassination attempts. Someone Min-seok trusted more than he trusted his own brothers. And according to a note slipped under his whiskey glass by a black waitress he'd never seen before in his life, Jae-sung Park was the traitor planning to kill him. The note arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night at Onyx, an upscale bar in downtown Los Angeles that Min-seok owned through a shell company. He was there for a private meeting with potential business partners from Mexico, discussing distribution networks for pharmaceutical products his organization smuggled from China through West Coast ports. The waitress who delivered the note was tall, maybe 5'10", with dark skin, natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing the standard Onyx uniform of black pants and white button-down shirt. She'd been serving their table for the past hour, bringing drinks efficiently and professionally, completely unremarkable in every way. Until she set down Min-seok's 3rd whiskey of the evening and there was a napkin folded underneath the glass. Most people wouldn't have noticed. The napkin was the same white cloth that Onyx used for all table service. It could have been there accidentally, could have stuck to the bottom of the glass during normal serving. But Min-seok noticed everything. Years of surviving in his profession had taught him that survival meant paying attention to details that others missed. He didn't open the napkin immediately. That would have been obvious, would have telegraphed to everyone at the table that something was wrong. Instead, he took a sip of his whiskey, set the glass down, and casually palmed the napkin while making a gesture during conversation. Slipped it into his jacket pocket without anyone noticing. Continued his meeting as if nothing had happened. But his mind was racing. Who was this waitress? Why would she pass him a note? What could possibly be written on it that required this method of communication instead of just approaching him directly? The meeting concluded at 12:30 a.m. with preliminary agreements about distribution territories and profit splits. Min-seok's Mexican counterparts left satisfied, believing they'd negotiated favorable terms. They hadn't, but they wouldn't realize that until much later. After they left, Min-seok remained in his private booth at Onyx, ostensibly reviewing some paperwork on his tablet but actually waiting to see if the waitress would approach again. She didn't. She continued her shift, serving other tables, completely professional and unremarkable. Jae-sung stood nearby, as he always did. 6'2", 220 pounds of disciplined muscle and tactical training, scanning the room constantly for threats, positioned to intercept anyone who got too close to Min-seok without permission. Min-seok pulled out the napkin, unfolded it carefully under the table where no one could see. The handwriting was precise, clear, written with what looked like a felt-tip pen in small, efficient letters. Your head of security, Jae-sung Park, is planning to kill you within the next 72 hours. He's being paid by your brother Min-jun to eliminate you and make it look like a rival hit. I have proof. Meet me in the kitchen storage room in 15 minutes if you want to see it. Come alone or I won't show myself. Someone who prefers you stay alive. Min-seok read it 3 times, his expression remaining completely neutral despite the ice-cold shock flooding his system. This was either the most important warning he'd ever received or the most sophisticated trap someone had ever set for him. Jae-sung, his most trusted bodyguard, planning to kill him? Being paid by Min-jun, his younger brother who'd been openly resentful about Min-seok inheriting leadership of the family organization? It was plausible. Fratricidal succession conflicts were common in their world. Brothers killing brothers to secure power and wealth. But it was also exactly the kind of accusation that could destroy trust and create paranoia that weakened organizations from within. The perfect way to isolate Min-seok from his security, make him vulnerable to actual threats by making him distrust the people protecting him. He looked at Jae-sung, who was currently speaking quietly into his phone, coordinating something with a security team outside. His most loyal bodyguard for 8 years. The man who'd taken a bullet for him in Tokyo. Who'd helped him survive a bombing in Manila. Could Jae-sung really be planning to kill him? Min-seok made a decision based on 12 years of survival instincts. He'd meet this mysterious waitress, see what proof she claimed to have, and determine whether this was legitimate warning or sophisticated trap. But he'd do it his way, with precautions. He stood, told Jae-sung he needed to use the restroom, and walked toward the back of the bar where the bathrooms and kitchen were located. Jae-sung started to follow, standard protocol, he always maintained close proximity. "Stay here," Min-seok said. "Watch the front entrance. I'll be 2 minutes." Jae-sung hesitated. Protocol was never to let Min-seok go anywhere alone. But direct orders from the boss override protocol. "Yes, sir." Min-seok walked to the back hallway, past the bathrooms, and entered the kitchen area. Found the storage room the note had referenced. A small space filled with dry goods, extra glassware, cleaning supplies. The waitress was already there, standing in the shadows between metal shelving units. "You came alone," she said. "Not a question, just an observation." "Good. That means you're smart enough to consider the warning might be legitimate." "Who are you?" Min-seok asked, his hand on the gun concealed at his waist. "And why should I believe anything you tell me about my head of security?" "My name is Kendra Matthews. I'm a freelance intelligence operative who gets hired by people who need information that's difficult to obtain legally." She didn't move from the shadows, clearly aware that Min-seok was armed. 3 weeks ago, I was contracted to gather information about the Hwang organization's operations in Los Angeles. During that investigation, I discovered that Jae-sung Park has been meeting secretly with your brother Min-jun and with representatives from the Sung crime family that's been trying to move into your territory. Anyone could make those claims. Show me actual proof. Kendra pulled out a phone, pulled up photographs. These were taken over the past 3 weeks. Jae-sung meeting with Min-jun at a warehouse in Long Beach. Jae-sung meeting with Song family representatives at a restaurant in Koreatown. Jae-sung accepting what appears to be a substantial cash payment from your brother. She showed Min-seok the photos. They were date-stamped, geotagged, clearly authentic. Min-seok's hands went cold. "I also have audio recordings of 2 conversations where Jae-sung discusses the timeline and method for your assassination. Want to hear them?" "Yes." She played 2 recordings. Jae-sung's voice was unmistakable. Discussing how to make Min-seok's death look like a hit by the Song family to trigger gang war, discussing the $1 million payment Min-jun had promised for successful assassination, discussing which of Min-seok's other bodyguards could be trusted to help or would need to be eliminated as witnesses. Min-seok listened to his most trusted bodyguard casually discussing his murder like it was just another business transaction. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked when the recordings ended. "You said you were contracted to investigate my organization." "By who? And why would they want me warned about internal betrayal?" "I was contracted by someone in your organization who's loyal to you and concerned about your brother's ambitions. They suspected Min-jun was planning something but didn't have proof. They hired me to investigate." She paused. "I'm telling you because I was paid to provide this intelligence, and because I prefer getting paid for completed contracts rather than having my client's boss murdered before I can deliver my findings." "Who hired you?" "That's confidential client information I won't disclose even under threat. Standard practice in my line of work, I never reveal who contracts me unless they give explicit permission." "What do you get out of warning me directly instead of just giving this information to whoever hired you?" "I get to ensure you actually receive the warning in time to do something about it. My client is junior enough in your organization that going through proper channels might result in the information being intercepted or dismissed. Delivering it directly to you ensures you have the intelligence needed to make informed decisions about your security." Min-seok studied her. Kendra Matthews was calm, professional, showing no fear despite being in a storage room with an armed crime boss who could have her killed with one phone call. Either she was exceptionally brave or she had insurance that made killing her counterproductive. Probably both. If this intelligence is accurate, Jae-sung will try to kill me within 72 hours according to your note. Do you know the specific plan? According to the recordings, he's planning to stage a car accident tomorrow night after your meeting with the city councilman who's on your payroll. He'll claim the brakes failed, you'll die in the crash, investigators will find evidence suggesting the Song family sabotaged your vehicle. Everyone blames them, gang war erupts, your brother takes over the organization during the chaos. Sophisticated plan. Your brother's been planning this for at least 6 months according to communications I've intercepted. This isn't impulsive fratricide, it's calculated succession politics. Min-seok processed all of this. What do you want? Payment for this intelligence delivery? I'm already being paid by my client. But I wouldn't object to future contract opportunities if you find my work satisfactory. You're marketing your services while warning me about assassination plots. I'm a freelance contractor in a competitive market. Networking during successful operations is standard business practice. Min-seok almost smiled despite the circumstances. This woman had extraordinary professional composure. How do I know this entire warning isn't a setup? That you're not working for my brother or the Song family to make me distrust my security and create vulnerability? You don't. You make a calculated risk assessment based on the evidence I provided and your own judgment about whether trusting Jae-sung is worth potentially dying if I'm telling the truth. She stepped forward slightly, enough that he could see her face clearly in the dim storage room light. But consider this, if I was setting you up, I'd have approached this differently. Made the warning more dramatic, pushed you harder to take specific actions, created urgency that prevented careful verification. Instead, I gave you evidence you can verify independently in time to make your own decisions. That suggests legitimate intelligence rather than manipulation. She had a point. I'm keeping these recordings and photographs, Min-seok said. I expected that. I have copies. Use them however you need to address the situation. If this intelligence is accurate and I survive the next 72 hours, I'll contact you about future contracts. If the intelligence is accurate and you survive, you'll owe me substantially more than just future contract considerations. You'll owe me your life. She smiled slightly. But we can negotiate appropriate compensation after you've dealt with your traitor problem. Min-seok left the storage room first, returned to the main bar where Jae-sung was still monitoring the entrance, still looking like the loyal bodyguard he'd been for 8 years. Looking like someone Min-seok trusted absolutely. Someone who was apparently planning to kill him within the next 36 hours. Everything okay, sir? Jae-sung asked. Fine. Ready to leave. They left Onyx, got into Min-seok's armored sedan with Jae-sung driving as always, headed back toward Min-seok's secured residence in Beverly Hills. Min-seok sat in the back seat, appearing to review emails on his phone, actually listening to the recordings again through a wireless earbud Jae-sung couldn't see. Listening to his most trusted bodyguard discuss his assassination. Planning how to survive the next 72 hours. And how to make the people who'd betrayed him regret it for however long they had left to live. Subscribe to see what happens when a crime boss discovers his most trusted bodyguard is planning to kill him and a mysterious waitress is the only reason he's still alive. Comment where you're watching from and tell me, would you trust a warning from a complete stranger? This story is just beginning. Min-seok didn't sleep that night. He spent the hours between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. in his home office, using resources that most people didn't know existed to verify everything Kendra Matthews had told him. The photographs first. He had a contact in the FBI who owed him a significant favor. Min-seok had provided intelligence about a terrorist financing network 2 years ago, information that had prevented an attack and made the agent's career. That agent now had access to surveillance databases that could verify whether the photos were authentic or digitally fabricated. The photos were real. Unedited. The locations, dates, and timestamps were all accurate. Next, the audio recordings. Min-seok sent the files to a specialist in South Korea who could verify voice authenticity through biometric analysis. The recordings were definitely Jae-sung's voice. Not manipulated or synthesized. Real conversations that had actually happened. Finally, Min-seok used his own intelligence network to confirm whether Jae-sung had actually been at the locations shown in the photographs at the times indicated. His people confirmed it. Jae-sung had been meeting with Min-jun and with Song family representatives, just as Kendra had documented. By 6 a.m., Min-seok had irrefutable proof that his head of security was planning to kill him. The betrayal hurt more than he'd expected. Jae-sung wasn't just an employee. He was someone Min-seok had trusted for 8 years, someone he'd considered almost like family, someone he genuinely believed was loyal. But emotions were irrelevant. Survival required immediate action. Min-seok made a phone call at exactly 6:30 a.m. Not to anyone in his current security team, they might be compromised if Jae-sung had been recruiting allies. He called Song Mi-yeon, his lawyer and one of the few people he trusted absolutely. She'd been his father's lawyer before him, had helped build the legal structures that protected the Hwang organization from prosecution, and had never once betrayed family confidences in 30 years of service. "We have a problem," he said when she answered. "Jae-sung Park is a traitor planning to kill me. I need you to coordinate replacing my entire security team without alerting anyone currently on that team that they're being replaced." There was a pause. "You're certain?" "I have photographic evidence of him meeting with Min-jun and with Song family representatives. I have audio recordings of him discussing the assassination plan and the payment he's receiving. I've had everything verified independently, it's all authentic." "Jesus. How did you discover this?" "A freelance intelligence operative warned me last night. Showed me the evidence. Everything checks out." "Who hired the operative?" "She won't say. Someone in our organization who's loyal and concerned about Min-jun's ambitions." "Doesn't matter who. What matters is the intelligence is accurate and I need new security immediately." "I'll handle it. I have contacts with a private military contractor that provides executive protection. They can have a team in Los Angeles within 6 hours." "Do it. Tell them the situation is hostile, that current security is compromised, that extraction and protection need to happen without alerting the existing team." "What are you going to do about Jae-sung?" "First, I'm going to survive the next 72 hours. Then I'm going to deal with him and with Min-jun and with anyone else who thought betraying me was acceptable." Min-seok's voice was cold. "But I need to be alive to do that. Priority is survival, then revenge." "Understood. I'll coordinate the security transition. Stay in your residence until the new team arrives to extract you. Don't go anywhere with Jae-sung, don't eat or drink anything he provides, don't get in any vehicles he's driving." "Already planned. I'm telling him I'm sick, staying home today, don't need security. That gives us time to get the new team in position." Min-seok hung up, then called Jae-sung. "I'm not feeling well," he said, making his voice sound slightly rough. "Probably something I ate last night. I'm staying home today, canceling all meetings. You can take the day off, I'll be in bed recovering." "Sir, I should stay in case you need anything. I need to sleep without someone monitoring me constantly." "Take the day." "That's an order." Jae-sung hesitated, clearly torn between protocol and direct orders. "Yes, sir. Call if you need anything." Min-seok spent the day in his residence, which was secured with layers of physical and electronic protection that even a compromised security team couldn't easily penetrate. Waited for Song-mi to confirm that new security was in position. The confirmation came at 2 p.m, new team is in Los Angeles. They're staging at a secure location 20 minutes from your residence. Ready to extract you whenever you give a word. Have them extract me at 8 p.m. Make it look like I'm leaving for a medical appointment, something that wouldn't be unusual. I want to be out of this residence and in secure location before Jae-sung realizes what's happening. At exactly 8 p.m, 3 vehicles pulled up to Min-seok's residence. The first 2 were standard black SUVs that could have been his normal security convoy. The third was an ambulance. The new security team, all former military contractors, all vetted through Song-mi's contacts, all briefed on the compromised situation, entered his residence and extracted him efficiently. To any observer, it looked like Min-seok was being taken to a hospital for medical treatment. Just the normal movement of a wealthy man with health concerns. In reality, he was being extracted from a location where his compromised security team knew his patterns and vulnerabilities. Jae-sung called at 8:17 p.m. "Sir, I just received alert that you left the residence. What's happening? Are you okay?" "Medical issue," Min-seok said, keeping his voice weak. "Nothing serious, but doctor wanted me at the hospital for tests. I'll be back tomorrow." "I'm coming to the hospital." "No. I'm fine. It's just precautionary. I'll call you tomorrow." He ended the call. The new security team had him in a secure safe house in the Hollywood Hills within 30 minutes, a location that only Song-mi and the security contractor knew about. Min-seok was safe. At least for now. But being safe wasn't enough. He needed to deal with the traitors before they had a chance to regroup and plan alternative attacks. He called Song-mi again. "I need you to arrange a meeting. Tomorrow night. Location of my choosing. I want Min-jun there, I want Jae-sung there, and I want representatives from the Song family who've been coordinating with them. Tell them I've discovered evidence of a plot against me and I want to resolve it through negotiation before it escalates to violence. That's extremely risky. You'll be in a room with people who want you dead. I'll be in a room with them and with 20 heavily armed security contractors who are loyal to me and prepared for hostile action. The risk is calculated." Min-seok paused. "And I want Kendra Matthews there. The intelligence operative who warned me. She has evidence these people need to see before they die. You're planning to kill them during this meeting. I'm planning to give them an opportunity to confess and explain before I decide whether they die or whether they're allowed to disappear into witness protection after providing testimony that protects me legally from retaliation. But yes, most likely scenario is they die. I'll arrange it. Where do you want the meeting?" "The warehouse district in Vernon. I own a building there through shell companies. Secure location, no civilians nearby, easy to control access. Have the meeting set for 9 p.m. tomorrow." The meeting came together exactly as Min-seok had planned. Song-mi contacted all the relevant parties, told them Min-seok knew about the plot and wanted negotiation before things got violent. They all agreed to attend, probably because they thought they could talk their way out of trouble or because they were planning their own ambush at the meeting. Min-seok arrived at the Vernon warehouse at 8 p.m., an hour before the scheduled meeting. His new security team secured the entire building, set up positions that would allow them to control the entire space, established clear fields of fire that would let them neutralize any threats within seconds. Kendra Matthews arrived at 8:30, escorted by 2 of Min-seok's security contractors. "You wanted me here," she said. "Why?" "Because I want the traitors to see the evidence you gathered before I decide what happens to them. You're the person who uncovered their plot, you should be present when they face consequences. I'm a contractor, not a witness in your criminal proceedings. My work was intelligence gathering, not testimony at executions. Consider this a bonus consulting fee for one evening of your time. I'll pay you $50,000 to present your evidence to the people who were planning to kill me and to watch what happens afterward." Kendra studied him carefully. "You're going to kill them all." "Probably. Does that bother you ethically?" "Not particularly. They're criminals who were planning murder. Their deaths are just consequences of their own choices. I'm just clarifying expectations. Expectations are: you present your evidence professionally, you watch what happens, you collect your $50,000, and you never speak to anyone about this evening unless I specifically authorize disclosure. Acceptable terms." The traitors arrived at 9 p.m. Min-jun came with 2 bodyguards, looking confident, probably thinking he could talk his way through this or eliminate his brother during the meeting if negotiation failed. Jae-sung came alone, his demeanor calm and professional, probably still believing that 8 years of loyal service would outweigh any accusations Min-seok might have heard. The Song family sent 3 representatives, their second-in-command and 2 enforcers who were clearly there to provide muscle if things went wrong. All of them walked into the warehouse expecting a negotiation. Instead, they found Min-seok sitting behind a table with 20 armed contractors positioned around the room, weapons visible, making it absolutely clear that no one was leaving unless Min-seok allowed it. Thank you all for coming, Min-seok said calmly. Please, sit down. We have significant matters to discuss. The traitors looked at each other, clearly realizing this wasn't the negotiation they'd expected. Min-jun spoke first. Brother, what is this? Why all the security? You said you wanted to discuss concerns. I said I discovered evidence of a plot against me. I never said I wanted negotiation. I want confessions before I decide what happens to all of you. I don't know what plot you're talking about. Let me help clarify, Min-seok interrupted. He gestured to Kendra, who stood and pulled up a presentation on a large screen that had been set up for exactly this purpose. My name is Kendra Matthews. I'm a freelance intelligence operative who was hired 3 weeks ago to investigate potential internal threats to the Hwang organization. During that investigation, I discovered that Jae-sung Park, who has served as Min-seok Hwang's head of security for 8 years, has been secretly meeting with Min-seok Hwang and with Song family representatives to plan Min-seok's assassination. She clicked through the photographs. Jae-sung meeting with Min-jun, Jae-sung meeting with Song family members. Jae-sung accepting cash payment. All date stamped, geotagged, irrefutable. I also recorded conversations where the specific assassination plan was discussed. She played the audio recordings. Jae-sung's voice, clear and unmistakable, discussing how to stage the car accident, how to make it look like Song family sabotage, how to trigger gang war that would benefit Min-jun's succession. The warehouse was completely silent except for the recordings. When they finished, Min-seok stood. Jae-sung Park. For 8 years, you served as my bodyguard. You saved my life twice. I trusted you more than I trusted my own brothers. And you were planning to kill me for $1 million and a promise of position in Min-jun's organization after my death. Jae-sung said nothing. What could he say? The evidence was irrefutable. Min-seok Hwang. My own brother. Planning fratricide to take control of the organization our father built. Not even having the courage to challenge me directly. Just hiring my own bodyguard to betray me. Min-jun's hands were shaking. He'd clearly underestimated his older brother's ability to uncover the plot. Song family representatives. You thought you could use internal Hwang family conflict to expand your territory. Thought you could profit from our weakness. Min-seok looked at all of them. I'm giving each of you one opportunity to confess completely and honestly. Tell me everything about the plot. Who else was involved, how it was planned, what you were promised. Complete honesty might convince me to show mercy. Silence. Then Jae-sung spoke. I did it for the money. You pay well, but your brother offered a lifetime position and $1 million up front. I made a calculated choice that survival in our business requires taking opportunities when they appear. At least you're honest now. Min-seok turned to Min-jun, and you, brother? You were never supposed to inherit leadership. Father made a mistake choosing you over me. I was correcting that mistake. By hiring my bodyguard to kill me instead of challenging me openly. Open challenge would have split the organization. This way was cleaner. Except it didn't work. Because someone in our organization was loyal enough to hire an investigator, and because that investigator was competent enough to uncover your plot before you could execute it. Min-seok looked at Kendra. Thank you for your excellent work. You can leave now. Your 50,000 will be transferred within the hour. Kendra left without looking back, escorted by one of the security contractors. After she was gone, Min-seok addressed the traitors one final time. Jae-sung Park. You betrayed 8 years of trust for money. That betrayal ends with your life. He nodded to his head of security for the new team. 2 contractors moved forward, grabbed Jae-sung, dragged him toward a side room. Jae-sung didn't fight. He knew it was over. Min-seok Hwang. You're my brother. That gives you one mercy, you get to choose. You can die here tonight, or you can disappear. Leave Los Angeles, leave California, leave the United States. Never contact anyone from the organization again. Live somewhere far away under a different name. You get to live, but you lose everything else. Min-jun looked at his older brother with hatred and fear. You're letting me live? I'm giving you exile instead of execution because our mother would be heartbroken if I killed both her sons in one night. But if you ever return, if you ever try to contact anyone from the organization, if you ever pose any threat to me again, the mercy ends and you die. Choose now. I choose exile. Then you have 24 hours to leave the country. After that, I put a price on your head that will ensure you never survive long enough to regret coming back. Min-jun was escorted out by contractors who would ensure he actually left. The Song family representatives were dealt with more harshly. They'd tried to exploit internal Hwang family conflict for territorial gain. That kind of opportunism required a response that would discourage future attempts. They died in that warehouse, their death sending a clear message to the Song family that exploiting Hwang weakness was fatal. By midnight, Min-seok had dealt with all the traitors. Jae-sung was dead. Min-jun was exiled. The Song family representatives were dead and their organization had been sent a very clear message about the consequences of future interference. Min-seok had survived the betrayal and eliminated the threats. But he'd also learned something important. The person who'd hired Kendra Matthews to investigate, the loyal member of his organization who'd suspected Min-jun's plot and taken initiative to uncover it, that person was valuable beyond measure. He needed to find out who it was and reward that loyalty appropriately. And he needed to hire Kendra Matthews permanently, because anyone competent enough to uncover a sophisticated assassination plot in 3 weeks was someone he wanted working for him instead of potentially working for his enemies. Min-seok found out who'd hired Kendra Matthews 2 days after the warehouse confrontation. It was Song Mi-yeon, his lawyer. The same woman he'd called to coordinate his security extraction. "You hired the investigator," he said when he summoned her to the new secure residence he'd established in Malibu. "Yes. I suspected Min-jun was planning something for months but I had no proof. Just instinct from watching him maneuver for position within the organization. I hired Ms. Matthews discreetly to investigate without revealing that I was concerned about internal threats. You saved my life by doing that. I saved your life because you're a better leader than your brother would have been. The organization is more stable, more profitable, and better positioned for long-term success under your leadership. That makes protecting you good business judgment in addition to personal loyalty. You could have told me about your suspicions directly. I could have. But you would have dismissed them as paranoia because I had no evidence, and you would have increased security in ways that alerted Min-jun and Jae-sung that their plot had been detected. They would have accelerated their timeline or changed their approach, making them harder to catch. Better to investigate quietly and present you with irrefutable evidence when I had it." Min-seok studied his lawyer with new appreciation. "You've been with this organization for 30 years. With my father before me. I've always valued your counsel, but I underestimated your strategic thinking. Most people do. They see lawyer, they think cautious and conservative. They miss that effective legal strategy requires understanding human behavior and organizational dynamics at least as well as understanding law. I want to increase your role in the organization. Not just legal counsel, but strategic advisor with authority to make decisions about operations and security when you believe it's necessary. That's a significant expansion of responsibility." "What prompted it?" "You identified an internal threat I missed, you hired an investigator who uncovered the plot in time for me to survive, and you did all of it with discretion that prevented the traitors from realizing they'd been detected until it was too late to escape consequences. That level of competence deserves increased authority and compensation. I accept, with one condition. I want Kendra Matthews hired as permanent consultant to the organization. Her intelligence capabilities would be extremely valuable for identifying future threats before they become critical. I was planning to recruit her anyway. You agreeing makes it easier. Then we're aligned on strategy. I'll coordinate Ms. Matthews' recruitment." Song-mi arranged a meeting with Kendra at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Santa Monica that had good security and enough ambient noise to prevent electronic surveillance. Min-seok arrived with minimal security, just 2 bodyguards from his new team, positioned to watch entrances but not to intimidate. Kendra was already there, sitting at a corner table with clear sightlines to all entrances, positioned defensively despite the casual setting. "Mr. Hwang," she said as he sat down. "I received your meeting request through Ms. Yun. What can I do for you?" I want to hire you. Permanent consulting contract to provide intelligence services for my organization. I'm a freelance operative. I don't do permanent positions or exclusive contracts. My business model relies on maintaining independence and diverse client relationships. I understand. I'm not offering employment, I'm offering a priority consulting arrangement. You maintain complete independence and all other clients, but my organization gets first access to your services when we need intelligence capabilities. Plus retainer compensation that would be significant even in months where we don't require active investigation. What's the retainer? Min-seok named a figure that was genuinely substantial, enough that Kendra could be selective about other contracts without worrying about income. That's generous. What's the catch? No catch beyond the standard expectations, complete discretion about everything you learn while working for us, loyalty to our interests in situations where your work for us might conflict with work for other clients, and absolute honesty in your reporting even when the intelligence is unfavorable or uncomfortable. Those are reasonable terms for that level of compensation. What kind of work would you expect? Threat assessment. Identifying potential internal betrayals before they develop into critical situations. Investigating business partners to determine if they're trustworthy or if they're planning deceptions. Gathering intelligence about rival organizations' capabilities and intentions. Basically, anything where your investigative skills would help us make better strategic decisions. Kendra considered. All except with two conditions. First, I maintain absolute client confidentiality. If you ask me to investigate someone who's also a client, I decline that specific project without explanation. Second, I'm not an enforcer or an operative in the sense of direct action. I gather intelligence and provide analysis, but I don't participate in any violence or criminal activity beyond information gathering. Both conditions are acceptable. I don't need you to be an enforcer, I have people for that. I need you to be exactly what you are. Someone who's exceptionally good at finding out what's actually happening beneath the surface. Then we have a deal. Have Ms. Yun send me the formal contract for review. Before you leave, I have a question. How did you get into this line of work? You're clearly military trained based on how you move and assess situations, but you operate as independent contractor rather than working for an agency or organization. Army intelligence for 6 years. I was good at it, but I didn't like the bureaucracy or the political constraints on what intelligence could be gathered and how it could be used. Started freelancing after my service ended, built a reputation for discretion and competence. Now I make substantially more than I would working for any government agency. Do you ever worry about the legal risks? Gathering intelligence on criminals often requires methods that aren't strictly legal. I worry about getting caught, which is different from worrying about legality. I take extensive precautions to protect myself legally and physically. That's why I'm still alive and not in prison despite working in your world for 5 years. What precautions? Insurance files with multiple trusted parties, deadman switches that auto-release information if something happens to me, maintaining contacts in law enforcement who would ask uncomfortable questions if I disappeared, never being in situations where I'm vulnerable without backup plans. Standard survival protocols for people who work in dangerous environments. Those are smart precautions. Song-mi indicated you're one of the most professional operators she's encountered in her 30 years of legal work with criminal organizations. Song-mi Yun is one of the most competent lawyers I've worked with. Her strategic thinking is exceptional. Hiring me to investigate your brother before she had proof of betrayal was sophisticated intelligence tradecraft that most lawyers wouldn't consider. She's valuable. As are you. I look forward to working with you long term. Kendra stood to leave. One more thing, Mr. Hwang. The person who slipped you that note at Onyx, the waitress who risked exposure to deliver warning about your bodyguard, that was you seeing me do basic field work. But my real value is the investigation that happened over 3 weeks before that moment. The note was just the delivery mechanism. Remember that when you're evaluating what I provide versus what flashier operators might offer. I understand. Substance over style. Results over performance. Exactly. I'll review the contract and have my response to Ms. Yun within 48 hours. She left the coffee shop, and Min-seok watched her go with appreciation for someone who was both competent and self-aware about what she provided. Over the next 6 months, Kendra Matthews proved to be one of the most valuable consultants Min-seok had ever hired. She identified a potential betrayal by one of his Vancouver distributors before it developed into actual threat. She investigated a potential business partner in Seattle and discovered the person was actually working for federal authorities as part of an undercover operation. She assessed security vulnerabilities in 3 of his major operations and provided recommendations that significantly improved their resistance to law enforcement or rival interference. But more than specific projects, she provided something Min-seok hadn't realized he needed, someone whose judgment he could trust absolutely because she had no ulterior motives beyond professional reputation and appropriate compensation. She didn't want power within his organization. She didn't want status or recognition. She just wanted to be paid well for doing work she was excellent at and to maintain her independence. That made her trustworthy in ways that people who wanted advancement could never be. "You've become essential," he told her during one meeting 6 months into their working relationship. "Which concerns me because essential people become targets. I'm aware. I've increased my security precautions accordingly. 3 separate secure residences that I rotate between randomly, enhanced personal protection capabilities, stronger insurance files that would be extremely damaging to multiple organizations including yours if they're ever released." "Including mine? I learned things while investigating for you. Some of that information would be valuable to your rivals or to law enforcement. That's leverage that keeps me alive if someone decides killing me is preferable to paying me. That's pragmatic. Also slightly threatening. It's insurance. You understand insurance, you maintain it against all sorts of risks. I'm just doing the same for personal survival. As long as that insurance doesn't become incentive to betray client confidences proactively. It won't. Betraying clients would destroy my professional reputation and eliminate future income. The insurance only activates if something happens to me, at which point reputation doesn't matter anymore because I'm dead. The incentive structure ensures I remain loyal as long as I'm alive and want to continue earning. You've thought through the strategic incentives very carefully. I've survived 5 years as an independent contractor working with criminal organizations. That requires thinking through incentives and risks constantly." They were in Min-seok's Malibu residence, reviewing her latest investigation into potential Song family retaliation for the 3 representatives Min-seok had killed after the warehouse confrontation. "The Song family is planning retaliation," Kendra said, pulling up her analysis. "But not directly against you, they're targeting your business operations. Specifically, they're going to hit your pharmaceutical distribution network through the Port of Los Angeles. Hijack shipments, disrupt supply chains, force your customers to find alternative suppliers." "How do you know this?" "I have a source inside the Song organization. Someone who's unhappy with current leadership and willing to sell information for appropriate compensation." "How reliable is this source?" "Reliable enough that I'd bet my professional reputation on the intelligence. The Song family is planning the operation for next week. They've already arranged the logistics. Bribed port workers, coordinated with a crew that specializes in cargo theft, identified which shipments to target." "Can you get me specifics about timing and methodology?" "I can get you complete operational details including which port workers are compromised, exactly which shipments they're targeting, and where they plan to move the stolen goods after hijacking. That information would let you either prevent the theft or turn it into a trap that eliminates the Song crew and sends a strong message about consequences for retaliation." "Get me everything. I'll coordinate with my security team to prepare an appropriate response." Kendra provided comprehensive intelligence about the Song family's planned operation. Min-seok used that intelligence to set an ambush that resulted in the entire Song crew being captured, the compromised port workers being exposed and replaced, and the Song family suffering significant embarrassment and financial loss. The operation was so effective that the Song family sent emissaries offering peace negotiations rather than risking further escalation. "Your intelligence was perfect," Min-seok told Kendra after the operation concluded successfully. "Every detail was accurate. The ambush worked exactly as planned. Good intelligence makes everything easier. That's what you're paying me for." The source inside the Song organization, can they provide ongoing intelligence? For appropriate compensation, yes. They're primarily motivated by money and by dissatisfaction with Song family leadership. As long as those motivations persist, they'll keep selling information. Then maintain that source. Pay them whatever they require. Having inside intelligence on the Song family is worth significant investment. Over the following year, Kendra Matthews became Min-seok's primary intelligence resource. She built networks of sources across multiple rival organizations, established relationships with corrupt officials who provided early warning about law enforcement activities, developed capabilities for surveillance and investigation that rivaled what government agencies could do. Her value to the organization increased exponentially. Min-seok found himself relying on her judgment about threats and opportunities almost as much as he relied on Songmi's legal and strategic counsel. But he also found himself increasingly interested in Kendra beyond just her professional capabilities. She was brilliant, able to analyze complex situations and identify patterns that others missed. She was brave in ways that didn't require performance or acknowledgement. She was honest about her limitations and her motivations in ways that most people in their world never achieved. And she was beautiful, though that was the least important of her qualities. Min-seok recognized the attraction was dangerous. Mixing professional relationships with personal involvement created vulnerabilities and complications. But he'd survived 17 assassination attempts by recognizing when risks were worth taking. Kendra Matthews might be worth the risk. The question was whether she'd be interested in anything beyond their professional arrangement. The shift from professional to personal happened gradually, in ways neither Min-seok nor Kendra initially acknowledged. It started with dinners after intelligence briefings that extended past midnight. Conversations about their very different backgrounds, her growing up in Detroit navigating post-industrial poverty, him inheriting a Korean criminal empire he'd never chosen. Discussions about whether their work was morally defensible or just pragmatic survival in systems that were corrupt regardless of their participation. Do you ever regret this work? Min-seok asked during one late dinner at a private restaurant he owned in Beverly Hills. Working for criminals, enabling operations that harm people, being complicit in everything we do? I regret specific things I've learned during investigations. Information about trafficking or violence that I couldn't prevent without compromising client confidentiality. But I don't regret the overall career path because the alternative was working for government agencies that operate with different methods but similar moral ambiguity. Kendra paused. The government surveils citizens without consent, assassinates people without trial, overthrows elected governments. Criminal organizations are more honest about being criminal. That's a cynical worldview. That's an accurate worldview. You're a criminal who at least acknowledges what you are. Most powerful people in legal systems commit comparable crimes while pretending to be legitimate. I prefer honest criminals to hypocritical legitimate authorities. So you've made peace with working for people like me. I've made peace with working for people who pay me appropriately and respect my boundaries. What you do beyond hiring me isn't my responsibility. Do you ever worry about the consequences if you're caught? Constantly. Which is why I have extensive legal protections, insurance files, and contingency plans. Fear of consequences is what keeps me careful enough to survive. That's pragmatic. That's survival. People who don't worry about consequences don't last long in our work. They were sitting in a private dining room, just the two of them, no security visible though Min-seok knew his people were monitoring all entrances. Can I ask you something personal? Min-seok said. You can ask. Whether I answer depends on the question. Are you involved with anyone? Romantically, I mean. Kendra looked at him carefully. Why are you asking? Because I'm attracted to you beyond just professional admiration. And I need to know if that attraction is appropriate to act on or if it's something I should suppress because you're already committed elsewhere. Kendra set down her wine glass. I'm not involved with anyone. My work makes relationships complicated, most people can't handle the secrecy or the danger or the moral ambiguity. So I stopped trying to maintain romantic relationships about 3 years ago. What if the person already understands the secrecy and danger because they exist in the same world? Then the complications are different but still substantial. Mixing professional and personal creates conflicts of interest, vulnerability, potential leverage that enemies could exploit. She met his eyes directly. Is this conversation going where I think it's going? That depends. Where do you think it's going? You're suggesting we get involved personally despite the professional complications. You're calculating whether the benefits outweigh the risks. And what's your calculation? Kendra was quiet for a moment. My calculation is that you're dangerous, intelligent, and one of the few people I've met who actually understands what I do and why I do it. That makes you attractive in ways that most people could never be. But it also makes getting involved with you extraordinarily risky professionally and personally. Is that a no? I need to think about whether the risk is worth it. Give me 48 hours to decide. Fair. Take the time you need. 2 days later, Kendra called him. I've decided the risk is worth taking. But we need rules, clear boundaries between professional and personal to prevent conflicts. They established rules over dinner that night. Professional work remained completely separate from personal relationship. No using intelligence capabilities to check on each other personally. No letting relationship dynamics influence operational decisions. If they had personal disagreements, those stayed personal and didn't affect their working collaboration. Kendra maintained her independence absolutely. Her own residence, her own income, her own identity separate from being Min-seok's partner. No becoming dependent or being perceived as his girlfriend who existed as decoration. Either person could end the relationship at any time without it affecting their professional arrangement. Breaking up didn't mean terminating the consulting contract. These are very pragmatic relationship parameters, Min-seok observed. I'm a pragmatic person. Romance without practical structure fails. This gives us foundation that might actually work. The relationship developed over the following months. They were good together in ways that surprised both of them, compatible intellectually, sexually, and in their understanding of the moral complexity of their work. Kendra understood that Min-seok ran a criminal empire. Min-seok understood that Kendra's work required maintaining secrets and contacts he'd never have access to. Neither tried to change the other or to cross the boundaries they'd established. It was the healthiest relationship either of them had ever had, precisely because it was built on realistic expectations rather than romantic idealization. But the real test came 10 months into their relationship when Kendra uncovered evidence that threatened everything they'd built. She was investigating a potential threat from a Chinese triad organization that was trying to establish operations in Los Angeles. During that investigation, she discovered something that had nothing to do with the triads and everything to do with Min-seok's organization. One of his senior lieutenants, a man named Jae-sung Kim who'd been with the organization for 12 years, was embezzling millions of dollars through false operational expenses and fake vendor contracts. It was sophisticated theft that had been going on for at least 3 years. Jae-sung had stolen approximately $15 million total, maybe more. Kendra sat in her apartment staring at the evidence for 2 hours, processing the implications. She was contractually obligated to report this intelligence to Min-seok. That's what he paid her for, identifying threats to his organization. But Jae-sung Kim was someone Min-seok trusted. Someone he'd known for over a decade. Reporting the embezzlement would devastate Min-seok the same way Jae-sung's betrayal had devastated him. It would also test whether their relationship could survive her being the person who kept delivering news about people he trusted betraying him. Would he eventually start to resent her? Start to associate her with betrayal and bad news? Start to question whether she was manufacturing threats to make herself more valuable? The same concern he'd had about Jae-sung before the evidence became irrefutable. Kendra made a decision based on her professional integrity. She reported the embezzlement exactly as she'd report any other intelligence, without letting personal relationship influence her professional obligations. She requested a meeting with Min-seok at his Malibu residence. Formal intelligence briefing, not personal time. He knew immediately something was wrong from how she'd framed the meeting request. "What did you find?" he asked when she arrived. "I found evidence that Jae-sung Kim has been embezzling from the organization for at least 3 years. Total theft is approximately $15 million, possibly more if the pattern extends further back than I was able to verify." She showed him everything. The false operational expenses. The fake vendor contracts with shell companies that Jae-sung controlled. The money trails leading to offshore accounts under Jae-sung's family members' names. Min-seok studied the evidence in silence for several minutes. "You're certain about this?" he finally asked. "I'm certain. I verified everything multiple times before bringing it to you. The evidence is comprehensive and irrefutable. Jae-sung has been with me for 12 years. He helped me consolidate control after my father died. I've trusted him with major operations." "I know. Which is why I debated whether to report this or whether to just quietly handle it myself without involving you directly. But our agreement is complete honesty about threats to your organization regardless of how uncomfortable the intelligence is." Min-seok looked at her. "Are you worried I'm going to blame you for discovering this? That I'll start to resent you for being the person who keeps finding betrayals?" "Yes. That's exactly what I'm worried about. Jae-sung betrayed you and I uncovered it. Now Jae-sung has betrayed you and I've uncovered that too. At some point, you might start to associate me with betrayal rather than with the protection I'm actually providing by identifying these threats before they become catastrophic. That's a legitimate concern. But also not how I think about your work." Min-seok set down the evidence file. "You didn't cause these betrayals. You just uncovered them. The alternative isn't that the betrayals don't exist, it's that I remain ignorant about them until they cause more damage. You're protecting me by providing intelligence, even when that intelligence is painful. You're being rational about this now. But I need to know, are you going to be able to maintain that perspective long term? Or am I going to become someone you unconsciously avoid bringing into your confidence because you associate me with discovering problems?" "I don't know. That's honest answer. I can tell you my intention is to value your intelligence capabilities regardless of whether the news is good or bad. But I can't guarantee my unconscious reactions won't develop the pattern you're worried about." Kendra appreciated his honesty. "What are you going to do about Jae-sung?" "Same thing I did about Jae-sung. Confront him with irrefutable evidence, give him chance to confess, then deal with him appropriately." Min-seok paused. "Do you want to be present for that confrontation?" "No. This is internal organization business. My job is intelligence gathering and analysis, not witnessing consequences." "Understood. Thank you for bringing this to me despite your concerns about how it might affect our relationship. Professional integrity requires it. Even when it's uncomfortable personally." Min-seok dealt with Jae-sung's embezzlement over the following week. The confrontation was similar to what had happened with Jae-sung: irrefutable evidence, demand for confession, consequences that were severe. Jae-sung confessed to the embezzlement. Claimed it started small and escalated over time, that he'd originally planned to pay it back but the amounts became too large. He was given the same choice Min-jun had received: exile or death. He chose exile. Disappeared to Southeast Asia with whatever money he'd managed to hide beyond what Min-seok recovered, never to return to Los Angeles or contact anyone from the organization again. After it was resolved, Min-seok called Kendra. "It's done. Jae-sung is gone. We recovered approximately 8 million of the 15 he stole, the rest is in jurisdictions where recovery would be too complicated. But the bleeding is stopped." "Good. I'm glad you were able to resolve it without too much damage to operations. I need to tell you something. These betrayals, Jae-sung, Jae-sung, they make me realize I've been careless about vetting the people I trust. Too willing to believe loyalty is permanent once established. That carelessness has cost me millions of dollars and nearly cost me my life." "Where are you going with this?" "I want you to conduct comprehensive background investigations on everyone in my inner circle. Everyone I currently trust with significant authority or access. Find out if there are any other betrayals I'm missing, any other threats I'm not seeing because I'm too close to the people involved. That's a substantial project. It would take months and it would be expensive. I don't care about time or expense. I care about knowing whether the people I trust actually deserve that trust." "Can you do it?" "I can. But you need to understand what this means. I'm going to find things that make you uncomfortable. I'm going to discover secrets, personal problems, vulnerabilities, maybe even additional betrayals. You're asking me to investigate everyone you're close to. That's going to change how you see people you currently value. I understand. Do it anyway. I'd rather know the truth and be uncomfortable than remain ignorant and vulnerable. Over the next 8 months, Kendra conducted the most comprehensive investigation of her career. She investigated every single person in Min-seok's inner circle, his remaining lieutenants, his financial advisors, his legal team including Song-mi, his security contractors, everyone who had significant access or authority. She found problems, though not as severe as Jae-sung or Dae-young. One lieutenant had a gambling addiction that made him vulnerable to pressure. He wasn't actively betraying the organization, but the debt made him a potential liability. Min-seok helped him get treatment and restructured his responsibilities to reduce financial access. A financial advisor was having an affair with the wife of a rival organization's boss. Not betrayal, but definitely a security risk if the affair was discovered and used for leverage. Min-seok had a very uncomfortable conversation with the advisor about either ending the affair or accepting transfer to operations where he wouldn't have access to sensitive information. One security contractor had lied about his military service record. He was still competent at his job, but the dishonesty meant he couldn't be trusted with the highest level assignments. Min-seok kept him employed but limited his access. Song-mi-yeon, the lawyer who'd hired Kendra originally, came back completely clean. No compromising secrets, no vulnerabilities, no betrayals. Just 30 years of consistent loyalty and competent service. Song-mi is the only person who's been exactly what she appears to be, Kendra told Min-seok when the investigation was complete. Everyone else has some secret or vulnerability or potential compromise. But Song-mi is genuinely loyal and competent without any hidden agendas. That matches my assessment of her. But it's good to have confirmation. You should increase her authority and compensation. People that loyal are rare. Already planned. I'm making her my formal second-in-command, effectively running day-to-day operations while I focus on strategy and external relationships. The investigation changed Min-seok's organization substantially. He restructured authority, limited access for people with vulnerabilities, increased compensation for people who'd proven completely loyal. The organization became more secure, more resilient, harder to penetrate or corrupt. But it also changed Min-seok personally. The discoveries about people he trusted, even the relatively minor problems, made him more cautious, more suspicious, less willing to take loyalty on faith. Kendra noticed the change during one of their dinners 3 months after the investigation concluded. "You've become more paranoid," she observed. "I've become more realistic. Too many people I trusted turned out to be untrustworthy. That teaches caution. There's a difference between reasonable caution and paranoia that prevents you from trusting anyone. You're moving toward the latter. Can you blame me? In the past 2 years, I've discovered my head of security was planning to kill me, my brother was paying for that assassination, and one of my senior lieutenants had stolen $15 million. Those aren't small betrayals. They're fundamental violations of trust. They are. But they're also not representative of everyone around you. Song-mi has been loyal for 30 years. Your new security team has been vetted thoroughly and shown no signs of compromise. Most of your organization is genuinely loyal. Focusing on the betrayals while ignoring the loyalty creates distorted perspective. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you're letting the betrayals damage your ability to trust anyone, including me. And that's going to create problems. Min-seok was quiet. Are you worried I'm going to start doubting you? I'm worried you're going to start doubting everyone, which will eventually include me. And when you start doubting the person who's been providing you with accurate intelligence about threats, you create vulnerability. If you stop trusting my assessments, you stop acting on my intelligence, and that's when you become vulnerable to threats I've warned you about. That's a fair concern. What do you suggest I do about it? Recognize that betrayal is a risk in your profession but not an inevitability. Some people betray, most people don't. Don't let the exceptions become your baseline assumption about everyone. Easier said than done when the exceptions have nearly killed me or stolen millions. I know. But the alternative is becoming so paranoid that you alienate the people who are actually loyal. That isolation creates different vulnerabilities. They were at Kendra's apartment. She'd insisted on maintaining her own space despite Min-seok offering to have her move into one of his residences. "Are we okay?" Min-seok asked. "You and me, personally? We're okay as long as you can maintain the boundaries we established. Professional is professional, personal is personal. Don't let the professional discoveries damage the personal relationship. What if I can't completely separate them? What if knowing you're the person who keeps uncovering betrayals makes me unconsciously wary of you personally? Then we end the personal relationship before it becomes toxic. I'd rather stop dating you while we can still work together professionally than let personal resentment destroy both the relationship and the working arrangement." That's very pragmatic. That's very realistic. Some relationships can't survive professional complications. Better to recognize that early than to force something that's become destructive. Min-seok pulled her close. "I don't want to end this. You're the only person I can be completely honest with about what I do and who I am. That's valuable beyond just professional intelligence. Then don't let paranoia destroy what we've built. Trust is hard for you now, I understand that. But try to maintain it with the people who've actually earned it." "I'll try. That's all I can promise." "That's enough." They managed to navigate the complications. Min-seok worked consciously to maintain trust with the people who'd proven loyal while remaining appropriately cautious about new relationships. Kendra continued providing intelligence without taking on responsibility for Min-seok's emotional reactions to that intelligence. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments about whether Min-seok was being too paranoid or whether Kendra was being too dismissive of legitimate security concerns. But they worked through the arguments without letting them become relationship-ending crises. 5 years after the note slipped under a whiskey glass, they'd built something neither had expected. Min-seok had a more secure organization, better intelligence capabilities, and fewer vulnerabilities to internal betrayal. Kendra had established herself as the most trusted intelligence contractor in Los Angeles's criminal underworld, with a reputation for discretion and accuracy that brought her lucrative contracts. They'd also built a relationship that worked despite all the complications. Maybe even because of the complications, because they'd been forced to be honest and realistic about what they could and couldn't provide each other. "We did something remarkable," Kendra said one evening, reviewing 5 years of intelligence reports she'd compiled for Min-seok. "We survived. In our profession, that's the only remarkable achievement that matters. We did more than survive. We built something functional out of paranoia and betrayal and realistic expectations." That's very romantic. I'm not a romantic person. I'm a pragmatic person who built a functional relationship with someone equally pragmatic. Best kind of relationship. Agreed. They'd proven that even in a world built on betrayal, trust was possible, if you were smart enough to verify that trust, realistic enough to accept human imperfection, and cautious enough to protect yourself from the inevitable exceptions. The waitress who'd slipped a note warning about betrayal had become the person Min-seok trusted most. That was its own kind of happy ending. Even if happiness, like everything else in their world, required constant vigilance to maintain. Trust is a calculated risk, not a given right. Min-seok Hwang learned that lesson the hardest way possible, through betrayal by people he trusted for years. His head of security planning his assassination. His brother financing that murder. His lieutenant stealing millions while pretending loyalty. Each betrayal could have destroyed him. Each one should have made him vulnerable, paranoid, unable to trust anyone ever again. But a note slipped under a whiskey glass by a stranger changed everything. Kendra Matthews could have ignored what she discovered during her investigation. Could have taken her payment from the anonymous client and never warned Min-seok directly. Could have let him die and moved on to the next contract. Instead, she risked exposure to deliver a warning to someone she'd never met. Not because she was noble or heroic, but because she was professional, and professional integrity meant ensuring her intelligence reached the person who needed it most. That professionalism saved Min-seok's life. But more than that, it showed him that trust was still possible if you were smart about how you granted it. Trust people who earn it through actions, not through words or history. Verify loyalty instead of assuming it. Accept that betrayal is a risk in any relationship, professional or personal, and protect yourself accordingly. But don't let the risk of betrayal prevent you from trusting anyone. Because isolation creates its own vulnerabilities, its own weaknesses that enemies can exploit. Kendra and Min-seok built something valuable out of calculated risk. A professional relationship that became personal, a partnership built on realistic expectations rather than romantic idealization, trust that was constantly verified rather than blindly granted. They proved that even in worlds built on betrayal, trust is possible. You just have to be smart enough to know the difference between people who've earned it and people who are performing loyalty while planning betrayal. The waitress who slipped a note became the person Min-seok trusted most. Not because she never gave him bad news, she consistently delivered intelligence about betrayals and threats. But because she was consistently honest, consistently accurate, consistently professional. That consistency earned trust more effectively than any amount of loyalty declarations ever could. If you loved this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about trust, betrayal, and the intelligence that makes survival possible. Comment below. Would you trust a warning from a complete stranger? Or would you dismiss it as potential manipulation? How do you decide who deserves your trust? Thanks for watching, and remember, trust is earned through consistent actions, not granted through assumptions. Verify before you trust, and protect yourself even after you've verified. Until next time.